Hi, and welcome everybody. We're so happy to have you with us all today. It's going to be an opportunity today to look a bit at how inside the machine works when you're creating a piece of art, specifically a musical, and more specifically than that, how universities can help to support these processes through a lens of innovation and experimentation in a creative laboratory space. Before I get started, I want to go down the line and have people introduce themselves. I'm going to pass the mic down first to my student.
Hi, my name is Liz Hughes. I'm a musical theater student at Syracuse University.
Hi, I'm Eloise Govadair, and I am the book writer and lyricist on one of the shows that we're talking about today, A Rebel Prayer.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Weil. I'm a composer of A Rebel Prayer with collaborator Eloise.
I'm Frances. I'm Frances, and I am Kathleen's collaborator on The Bridge.
Yeah, and I'm Kathleen Wrinn. I'm a professor at Syracuse University, and I taught a class that we're going to tell you a little bit about today where we developed these two works, but I am also the book writer and the lyricist and the co-composer with Frances of the musical The Bridge. So I just said a little bit about who I am, but another just aspect to say, my research focus as a professor is specifically in new musical development in academia. Because you always have to find something hyper-specific when you're in a tenure track position. But also because my background is as a performer and as a writer. I actually was a graduate of Syracuse's student as an undergraduate, and I got my BFA in musical theater performance. I then went on to get my MFA at NYU in musical theater writing, and then coming back now and teaching performance, I realized that I really wanted to be able to bring sort of my vantage point also as a writer into the classroom so that that could support our performance students as they learn how to acquire that unique skill of how to bring a work to life for first time as they go out into the industry. And also to sort of marshal all of the resources that we have in academia towards supporting new work development, which is what we're going to talk about today. I am also writing a book that's coming out next year called Developing New Musicals in University Theater Programs. You see a theme here. And the hope behind that is that it will inspire educators who perhaps lead theater programs but have never maybe undertaken the process of shepherding a new work to any stage, whether it be a staged reading, which is a little bit of what you're going to see today, or a workshop, which might be that something is up on its feet, but probably has sort of limited scope of design elements, a little more bare bones, or even to a full production, which we're going to be doing of Rebel Prayer next spring, and we'll talk a bit about that too. So, plan for today, we're going to speak a bit about how new musicals get made. We're going to pull the curtain back on that, the role universities can play, what we've been doing at Syracuse. We're going to talk about these two works, The Bridge and A Rebel Prayer, and then get some perspective from what it's been like both for the students and for the writers to work together this semester in a course setting. And then at the end, and this is the fun part, so do stick around, we're going to sing for you. We're going to do some scenes and songs from both musicals. And the way that we decided to do this is we're actually going to show you the first version of a song moment that was written in each piece. And then we're going to show you the new song that got rewritten and replaced that moment so we can talk about process, because that's what we're doing in the class. And then at the end, I hope that we will have a fair amount of time to take your questions too. So, first of all, how do new musicals get made? The ever-famous Stephen Sondheim musical comedies aren't written, they are rewritten. Yeah, it takes many, many tries. And that is called development, like it is in so many different fields. And what does that really take in actuality? It takes a combination of people, resources, be they space, be it actual funding, and especially time. I'm going to ask to both of our teams, myself included, when did you start writing A Rebel Prayer?
We started in 2014.
2014.
And we did take a break, but yes, 2014.
As often happens, because you've written a couple other full-length works in the interim, right? But a lot of times you have multiple projects going on, and it takes a lot of elements coming together to bring something to fruition, so it certainly takes time. The Bridge was started in 2017. We'll talk a little bit more about this later on, but actually originally started with another collaborator, and then Frances and I started working together almost exactly a year ago. This is a happy anniversary. It's our one-year anniversary of working together on the piece. Great. So people, resources, time, and experimentation, just a willingness to try and to fail and to try again, which I'm sure some of our colleagues over in the rooms talking about the sciences are very familiar with as well. So how can universities come in? We make space for all of these things, right? So we have people. What does that mean? We have faculty and staff expertise. We like to think that we know something about what we're talking about, be that in direction, music direction, choreography, design, stage management, production management, and truly, probably our most precious resource is our student talent, right? We have these wonderful young artists who don't really realize how good they are yet, right? And they're here to learn, and they want to sink their teeth into something and bring it to life for the first time. And so we can often in universities actually do pieces that have larger casts than might be as easily supported or funded out at a nonprofit theater, for instance. I know that oftentimes we're looking to find new casting opportunities for a large number of students, and so the fact that the Bridge has 30 people in it, not a problem, right? Might be a problem, yes, Liz Shapiro's laughing at me. Yes, it might be a problem somewhere else. We can imagine it in many different iterations, though, Liz, I promise, we're very creative. So yes, student talent pool. Resources that I was talking about, both internal funding, be it for our own production seasons, which is some of how we're developing Rebel Prayer in this coming year, or external funding, again, through grant funding. And then really critical resources, rehearsal and performance spaces. I always think about this at Syracuse in the summertime when the building is just empty. We have 19 pianos in our building that are just sitting there, unplayed, right? We have space, and we have these critical resources of instruments. We have music stands. I had to go out and buy a music stand yesterday because we're not at the music school. But we have many music stands at Syracuse. We have sound, we have lighting, we have costumes. Time. Perhaps the biggest gift that the university setting can give to the musical theater developmental process or any artistic developmental process is the luxury of time. We don't have infinite time, but frankly, we have a lot more time than you would have in a commercial setting. So again, whether it's in our main stage production season, which has a 6-week rehearsal calendar, small-scale studio projects, we have a 5-week workshop we're going to be doing of Rebel Prayer in the fall, or our main focus today, curricular integration, where you can have a course, perhaps, in which you will workshop musicals, that takes 15 weeks, right? When do you have a 15-week incubator out in the theater industry? Anybody in it knows the answer is never, right? Never. But we can do that. And then finally, experimentation. And I think that where our heads are at in a university, which is we're there to learn, right? We're there to discover. We're there to try something out and see what we glean from it, right? And just that whole mindset, how inquisitive the students are taught to be in their dramatic analysis classes, in their performance classes, getting curious about their characters, is really, really conducive to developing new work because everyone is already asking questions, right? So it's an environment of learning and discovery, process-based mindset, right? Which is so important to kind of take that pressure off the product. And with that, low stakes. Right? It feels very high stakes.
It does.
When you're a student in a university, it feels like these things are the end of the world or they are the culmination of your career because they are at that point in time. But for those of us who've been out in the industry and we're back and we're teaching, we know that actually it doesn't really matter what happens behind the walls of the university. The production goes well, it doesn't go well, you learn that you're going to cut that opening number. What a wonderful place to discover that. Not when you're getting reviewed by the New York Times. Not when you just put $3 million into your out-of-town tryout, right? But in a classroom or even on our stages. So just a little bit about the program at Syracuse, if you're not familiar. We are the Syracuse University Department of Drama. We're one of the top drama schools worldwide. We have 5 degree programs, including Bachelors of Fine Arts in both acting and musical theater. We also have degrees in stage management, and theater design and technology. We are a conservatory-style training program within an R1 university. What does that mean? It means our students take about 23 credits worth of academic classes when they're there, if they're in the musical theater program, and otherwise the rest of their courses are all in some sort of musical theater or theater focus. So there's a lot of focus on that aspect. But we're in a research university. And if anybody was at the tech transfer for the arts panel yesterday, continuing to think about how can research universities act as incubators for innovation in this field is something that I think is a real opportunity for us. We also happen to have a really unique integration with Syracuse Stage, which is the premier professional theater in central New York. They are right in the same building with us. And so we have, where's Katie? She's in here somewhere. There she is. Katie, who you may have heard sing the role of Marianne McMahon in The Bridge yesterday, came in and played Ariel in The Little Mermaid at Syracuse Stage a couple of years ago, and we had students in that cast. So again, we have this unique opportunity to interface with the profession. Yes. And so what have we been? So that is what we are at Syracuse kind of historically. And now, in the last few years, we've really been establishing ourselves as a leader in terms of new work development. So some of the things we've done. We have an initiative called New Works, New Voices, for which I'm the artistic director. And it was created to support the development of new musicals by writers and composers whose perspectives have been historically underrepresented in the musical theater canon. That can mean any number of things. It's a self-selecting application process. But we are now in our 5th year of that initiative. And every spring, we do a workshop, a 3-week workshop of a new work. We get about 150 submissions of new musicals every summer. And I work with a team of student readers, and we narrow those down to 1 with that combination of faculty and student perspective working on that process, results in a 3-week workshop each spring. So we've been doing that for 5 years. That's kind of been our little gem in terms of new musical development. And then this year, we tried a new thing, which was integrating this work into the classroom. And so a new course that I taught this spring called Workshopping New Musicals, DRA 300. So moving into that, like lovely Liz up here on the screen. See, it's real, it happened. She's a real live student who was in that class. We shipped her here. An upper level performance course. So it was taken by both acting and musical theater majors. A bit about the course, here's the catalog description. The real focus of the class for the student portion was to teach them how to be the kind of actor that a writer wants to work with, okay? Which is in and of itself, a different skill set, or at least an adjacent skill set to I'm putting on a work and the writers are either deceased or not present, at least in the room, right? As opposed to I'm working here, they're sitting 10 feet from me. What does that collaboration mean? What does that look like? What is my role? When can I ask questions? Do I ever get to say what I really think about the piece, right? So it's to create a space where the students can discover that, again, in that low-stakes environment. And so this is their learning outcomes, which is all about learning how to come up with a unique interpretation for a character for the first time, learn those best practices of rehearsals. But then in the writer portion of it, it was, again, to give this long incubator where they could try out work, see how it lands, try a rewrite, see how that lands. So we're going to talk now and pivot a bit to the works themselves. So first of all, we had a Rebel Prayer, which you heard a little bit about. Full-length original musical, book and lyrics by Eloise, music by Alexandra, and then The Bridge, another full-length original musical. We're seeing fewer and fewer original musicals these days, right? We're getting a lot of movie adaptations, a lot of jukebox musicals, and no hate on those musicals, but occasionally it can be nice to see a new story. Both of these are that. Book and lyrics by me and music by Frances and myself. So I'm actually going to hand, because I've been talking a bit, I'm going to hand to Alexandra and Eloise to tell you a bit about their show.
Thank you. A Rebel Prayer is a punk protest musical centered around a young Russian girl who is struggling between deciding whether to continue her father's legacy of fighting for freedom or sort of submitting to an authoritarian regime responsible for his death. The show really takes a fictional story and places it in a very real historical and political context, and also uses magical realism to delve deep into the grief that she experiences and her mother experiences, and also what else? There was something else. Also to help facilitate her political awakening. The magical realism portion is presented with the characters of Pussy Riot, which, if you're not familiar, Alexandra will go into a little bit more.
Yeah, so Pussy Riot, for folks who are not familiar, are real feminist punk performance art collective. I think I got that right, who protested against Putin in Moscow in 2012 in a church. It was a 40-second performance that caused a global riot, and they were arrested, charged with hooliganism, and imprisoned for 2 years just for that 40-second performance. So when we started writing A Rebel Prayer, which was our thesis project at NYU, they were in prison, and there was a lot of stories all over the globe about them as kind of this incredible symbolism for fighting against authoritarianism. And we started our roots, our artistic roots, being in a rock band. So seeing girls rock out, not just doing incredible punk music, but also standing for something and being badasses and facing real consequences was incredibly inspirational to us. And we ended up weaving them as characters into our stories. So Pussy Riot, who have also this incredible, colorful aesthetic. They have these bright balaclavas that they wear, that they put on, and they almost become like superheroes. They play these magical spirit guides in our show that meet Nikita and bring her out of her shell and guide her on her journey to political awakening, and also helping her kind of cope with the enormous personal loss that she goes through at the top of the show.
Us through. So, a little bit about the past and future development of it that I will bring up here, but I'll let you two talk about that.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it was started out at NYU as our thesis project. We were super fortunate that NYU championed the piece for after that for a couple of years. They offered us another 3-week workshop, and then another workshop, a reading, and then a workshop, staged workshop. And then it kind of bounced around between different residencies and various developmental projects and performances, so like performances of different things. We also then got an excerpt workshop at Portsmouth College in UK, and then now we've been super lucky to be developing it at Syracuse University since September of 2024. We had a reading in the fall. We had the semestral incubation this past spring. We have a workshop coming up this next fall, and then academic world premiere in spring. So super fortunate to develop it in 3 different academic settings, and probably places where we made the most progress and the most discovery about the piece.
Wonderful. So, some actual accomplishments in the course itself, some things that happened this semester. Do you want me to go through this, or you want to say this? I'm happy either way. Great. So we started out with an initial read-through of the piece and of that draft at the time, which was actually a quite rewritten draft of Act 1, is where we began at the top of the semester in January. We later on in the semester had a table read, meaning we all sit around a table and we talk about it and we ask questions about it, of an entirely new Act 2, basically completely new material, nothing that had existed before. We did really in-depth table work, meaning asking those dramaturgical analysis questions with the students and with the writers. They wrote 3 brand new songs during the course. They also rewrote and workshopped 2 large ensemble numbers and made changes to those. And then at the end of the class, last month in April, we had a staged reading presentation of 12 songs and various scenes for an audience. So that's where we got to end at. Anything else you want to say before I scoot over to the bridge? I'm like, it was great. It was all good. Moving to the bridge. What is this about? You may have heard yesterday, but if you did not, it is a 2-part musical epic. So that those 30 people are going to be doing a lot of work. Inspired by the true story of the woman who secretly built the Brooklyn Bridge. So when Emily Warren Roebling's wife, Washington Roebling, who was chief engineer on the Brooklyn Bridge, when he fell ill about 3 years into construction of the project, he never went to the worksite again. And she carried his dictated orders back and forth by carriage. She drove them to the worksite. And then eventually, as he really started to deteriorate in terms of his mental and physical health, she started making engineering decisions on her own. And we don't know the full extent of that, but we get to imagine that as artists. And one of the things that I would say about taking this piece into this class and why it was so important is because, like I said, we restarted this about a year ago. So the developmental history, we started back in 2017, but then we had a big reboot in 2024 in May. And then what did we do in November, Francis?
We did about 90 minutes of it on my doctoral recital.
Yes, we did.
Which was insane. With how many people? 24 singers and 5 instrumentalists.
Yeah, 90 minutes of music that we wrote between May and November of last year that we then presented here at Yale. And as you can imagine, in that like 6-month period of writing that, we had blacked out through most of that time. And so to be able to come to Syracuse this spring and actually take a breath, hear the songs again, write a script around them, because I had written a script for the recital, but not one for the actual book musical in this sort of newly imagined version that Frances and I took on. And so we got to hear that for the first time in this course. And coming up next, we're looking within this year and into early next year to have a workshop of all of part 1. That's kind of what's next on our docket. And I'm actually here for the next week when we're going to be finishing writing that. So it's really teed us up for that moment. Some accomplishments in the class. Like I said, we heard a table read of the first draft of Book and Lyrics for part 1. We did that same table work, dramaturgical research. We wrote 2 brand new songs for that class, one of which you're going to hear today. We also rewrote and workshopped some vocal arrangements for ensemble numbers. And at the end, we did a presentation of 10 songs in various scenes, very similar to Rebel Prayer. Anything else you want to say on that before I go into the questions of what was it like?
I have no idea how it came together. I'm still stringing that story together in my brain. But I mean, it simultaneously felt like it came together incredibly quickly because we had a very intense and focused group of people who were working, towards the same vision.
Yes. And I think, just a side note to say, I think one of the things too that I know was really heartening for us in the class and still translate into the writer experience was, frankly, the enthusiasm of the students. To see the way that they took to the material, the way that they got, like I said, they get curious about it, but they also get kind of jazzed about it too. And as a writer, to be working on your computer or working behind your piano, and then to move into a space where you have 15 other people who are like, oh my gosh, that moment, you made that change. And they give you that, and that infuses you, and that keeps you going too. And so I'm going to move into this a bit. I'm going to check where we are in time to make sure we have time to hear the things. But I have a couple questions. So for you, can I ask, what was maybe the most exciting part of the experience for you, Eloise and Alexandra, or the biggest surprise, whatever most comes to you?
I think it was the biggest surprise and most exciting was, it's always working with the students in our experience, but the things that they discovered about the characters and the characters' relationships, things that I hadn't seen, hadn't thought about, and are definitely getting worked onto the page now. That for me was, you're kind of in a little bit of like a void when you're writing, and you start to not see a lot of things or see too much and not know what's really going on. And it just provides a lot of clarity, and that was really exciting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Working with young, incredible artists who don't have egos. They just want to learn and do an amazing job and are so hungry and eager to sink their teeth into new, exciting work. And like Kathleen mentioned, their excitement also because they're kind of your first audience. You're sort of testing things out on them. So it's so thrilling to see when humor lands, when an emotional note lands. But then they're also a really important collaborator who make your characters real and three-dimensional and help you understand what you actually have written and whether it's landing or not. So that process is really thrilling.
What was the biggest takeaway for you, Frances, from the class?
I mean, like it's hard to not overstate the students. Like that's the easy answer because the students' enthusiasm, just like Eloise and Alexandra said, is like doing it with young professionals is astonishing. But if there was something else that I could take away, I think that the pace at which musical theater is sort of like unwound and like put back together is like astonishing, and you have no idea how like messy it is, like how just chaotic it is. And you get, when you have a residency that's not like, a week or 2 weeks, but you have 15 weeks, then like you get to ask all of those questions about like, oh, does this moment actually make sense? And does like, this is from 14 drafts ago, like why is it still in here, right? And some of that's what we're going to talk about today. But for me, that was so useful just to like slow down the process and like reflect on some of these moments that we don't get to reflect on in professional settings.
Absolutely. I'm going to move to you, Liz. Do you want to say a little bit about what new works you've worked on first?
Yeah, sure. Including the class I took, I have done 4 new works. I was able to understudy my sophomore year, which was really fun.
In New Works, New Voices.
In New Works, New Voices, yep. And then I took the class, and I played the role of Nikita in Rebel Prayer, and a very funny rich lady in The Bridge, which was so much fun. I was also a tenor, which was so much fun. Couple roles, yeah. And then I was able to do a 2-person musical this past spring called Bed Toward the Light, which was really fun. Totally different experience doing a 2-person musical. Really build up my stamina. So, yeah.
What advice would you give to students going into these processes?
Be curious. Don't judge the piece at all, because it's pretty vulnerable for not just the performer to take big risks, but also the writers, because it's their, it's kind of like their baby. It's their work. And so just get curious. Do work outside of class, because it seems simple, but it will really help. Like even 15 minutes each day reviewing music or anything, it's really helpful. And it's really fun to work with the team. And yeah, just get curious. Don't judge it. Yeah.
And then you do that work outside of class, then you come in the next day and we say, actually, that song's cut. Here's your new one. So do that futile work outside the class. So speaking of which, that seems like a good transition point into a look inside the process. Or as Aaron Burr, or fictional Aaron Burr said, how the game is played, the art of the trade, how the sausage gets made. So let's see a little bit about how it gets made. Just some fun facts. There were 13 songs written for Hamilton that were cut before the Broadway production. And this is my favorite one, of Lin-Manuel's first draft of In the Heights when he did it at Wesleyan University. Only 3 words remained, which was in Washington Heights. That's it. The rest of it changed, right? And so embracing that, but knowing that even though it changed so much, the kernel of that idea, the heart of that idea, the need for that story was always there from the beginning, and then it needed to be given the resources and the time and the people and that experimental mindset to be able to discover what would it eventually be, and also be given a book writer as well, who joined him later on and then said, you're taking everything out. So today we're going to hear the first draft and then a rewritten new draft of a song moment from each of the 2 pieces. We've decided to focus on, you may have heard this phrase before, on I want songs for the protagonist, which are often, I think, some of the hardest things to nail down, because whatever your protagonist's journey is really the story that you're telling, right? And the story that you're telling is what you are looking to say as an artist with this piece and to put out into the world. And so, unsurprisingly, sometimes they take some time to get right. I will say that for The Bridge, you're going to hear the first song that Frances and I wrote for an I Want song for Emily, and then the rewritten one. With my previous collaborator, we had 5 that we went through, which I will spare you today. But just to say, again, being able to have these environments and embrace that and then say, okay, what is this one giving? What am I taking from this?
And what did you title your talk about the I Want songs?
Oh, I gave a talk to our freshman musical theater majors about how musicals are made, and I called it Growing a Spine, One Writer's Epic Quest to Find Out What Her Musical is All About. That is what I call it.
Also known as You Tell Me What I Want.
Also known as You Tell Me What She Wants, because I don't know. Great. Oh, wonderful. And so we're also going to hear a bit of insight from each of the writing teams as to the why behind this rewrite. We'll set up the first moment, sing it for you, and then we'll say, and here's why we're not keeping that, and why we changed it, and where we're going. Great. So let's move into that. So with that, we're going to start with the Rebel Prayer and the first song, if you want to set it up while we get set over here.
Yes. So, well, first of all, I'd like to preface it by saying that this wasn't exactly an I Want song. This was really just a preliminary exploration of the protagonist and her primary relationship, which is with her mother, and showing the conflict between the 2 of them. So the little excerpt we're going to show is actually an excerpt out of the original opening number. So you'll hear a little bit of the mother character, which is Elena, played by Kathleen, and a little bit of Nikita, the protagonist, played by Liz. And to kind of set the stage, we are opening up the show on a small town in Russia. Putin has just been reelected for the 3rd time, and townsfolk are celebrating. we meet Nikita. She's a teenage girl who has just relocated from Moscow after the politically motivated murder of her father. Elena, Nikita's mother, tries to convince her that this move will give them a fresh start. But Nikita, missing her old life and mired in grief, can only think of returning home.
I've told you again and again, Moscow's not good for us right now. Too much has happened there. We need somewhere quiet, free from the noisy city riot. A fresh start we can share. The apartment is sold, there is no going back. Accept it and unpack. This is our new home. We are strong. Through even the worst, we still carry on. Have some faith and soon you'll see. Time will heal everything. I don't understand, it doesn't make sense. People don't leave their homes for this. Moscow, you're all I have ever known. Every memory I own belongs to you. Memories of Papa at home, the couch with his feet on the pillow, drinking a glass of red wine and looking out the window at the Siberian pine. Now it's all gone and the shades on Papa's window are drawn. Moscow, everything's changing now, and it's hard to stay strong. I just know in this country town I will never belong.
It's lovely, and you heard it, and I hope you enjoyed it, because you'll never hear it again. So let's talk about, why did you rewrite it?
Oh my goodness. So just hearing so many things in that. But anyway, so that again wasn't really an I Want song. It was more of a snapshot in time and a depiction of their dynamic, which hasn't changed in this draft. However, we wanted to write a real I Want song. We wanted something that was more energetic. It's the beginning of the show. This is kind of sad, you know. It's beautiful music. Words are.
Protect that collaboration.
I have some notes for myself, but yeah, it's a little, you know, draggy. So we wanted something a little more charactery, more, you know, specific, and yeah. So there was that, and then as I was writing the book scene leading into this I Want song, as often does, something surprises you that you write, and there's this line about the country having some magic, and so I brought that into it, and of course there's this magical presence of Pussy Riot in the show, and I was like, ooh, you know, seeds of what's coming. So I've been playing with that. This is a first draft of this song, so I still am hearing things obviously in it, but I'm still excited to share it with you guys. So you want to add anything?
Yeah, we just finished it 2 days ago. I have no perspective. Record this and listen, like give it 2 weeks, listen to it again, and be like, how terrible it is. Let's find out. So enjoy.
You're now in my class as well. This is what it's like. Isn't it fun? We can do more of this. Great.
Nikita and Elena are sitting in a train.
Nikita. Nikita.
Nikita wakes up.
We're on the train, remember? Oh. Do you want to talk about it?
Yes?
It could help.
I'm fine.
You know, the nightmares are just your mind trying to sort through and make sense of what happened. Talking about it, even just a little, could help them go away.
Are we almost there?
Almost. This move is a chance to start over, Nikita. You'll see.
The train screeches to a stop and lets out a huge sigh of exhaust.
I think you're going to love Domikov.
They exit onto a country road at dusk, holding suitcases and stand in front of a rundown farmhouse. It looks like the house equivalent of a cartoon face that just came back from a fight with a black eye and missing teeth. Nikita takes it all in.
The house needs a little work, but it's cozy, right? Especially in the winter. I bet we can get the fireplace working again if we try. And spring is so beautiful here. The flowers really brighten everything up.
Where's the downtown?
The grocery store's around the corner. Their apples come straight off the trees, and they have the sweetest cherries, sweet like candy.
Yay, fruit.
And your new school is just down the road past that huge oak tree. The air is so clean and it's quiet. I feel like I can breathe again.
What do people do here? Is there even a theater?
No theater. But our church is impressive. At least it was when I was growing up.
You went to church.
We both did. You should have seen your father all dressed up on Sundays in his little suit. He always had a smear of dirt somewhere, and I would hear your grandmother apologizing for it the whole service and forget getting him to sit through any prayer. He used to chase me down that road after school every day and get so mad because he could never catch me. Until one day I let him. Followed him all the way to Moscow. Maybe we should have just stayed. There's a certain kind of magic here. You can feel it, right?
Moscow is better.
Moscow is a black hole.
Moscow is home.
Not anymore.
Elena picks up the suitcases and enters the house.
Magic. What magic? These trees look like skeletons. This house looks like it's crying. If fruit was ever alive and well here today, it's surely dying. The road Papa chased you down is covered by thistles and rocks and mud. I've got dirt on my socks. If this is the magic you're trying to sell, I'm not falling for your spell. No, abracadabra, no bippity boo. I'll never be a country girl like you. Back home we had traffic and lights and music playing. We never spent our days at church there, wasted time with praying. The road Papa chased you down is haunted by ghosts from your past, so I have to think fast. As God as my witness, I must be in hell. I'm under a curse, not spell. No, abracadabra, this much is true. I'll never be a country girl like you. I'll get back to Moscow, whatever it takes. The fire in me has awoken. You love the country, you didn't know better. You're only back 'cause your dreams are broken. These trees look like skeletons. This house looks like it's crying. You say we can start over here, but there's no point in trying. The road Papa chased you down is the same one he took when he left for good. One look around and I understood. He was the magic, the one to rebel, and you fell under his spell.
liturgical music, followed by whispers.
Hello? Who's there?
Come this way.
What
To the church.
Nikita scrambles up to her feet and runs inside the house and slams the door shut.
And that's the new one. Anything you all want to say before we go on to it?
That was beautiful. Thank you.
All right, we're going to give you a little bit of a peek at the bridge as well, the same process. Now we get to air our dirty laundry in front of you. So we actually, this first song was the I Want song for Emily when we did the recital for Francis's DMA in the fall. And then the next song that you're going to hear after that, I wrote the lyric for it when we were in the chorus and we heard it read, but then it actually got musicalized just after the class ended. So we got part of it there and then part of it afterwards, and we're going to show that. So a little bit of setup. So prior to this, we have seen an opening number where we see the cities of New York and Brooklyn, and we learn it's 1869, summer of 1869, and we see that they are divided in pretty much every conceivable way across lines of class, race, and gender. And then they learn that a bridge is going to be built to connect their two cities, and they're not very happy about that. So we've seen that opening number. And then we move to scene 2, where we get Emily Warren Roebling and her husband Washington. We get into their brownstone together. And so before this first song, which is called Worth the Wait, we have seen a scene with Emily and Washington. And Washington he's been riding around the city in a carriage. They have a new coachman, they have a new coachman who's driving them. Because Emily, although she's a fine horsewoman, she does not drive anymore. She has given that up because she's been asked to by Washington. And so he shows up at home. He's on his way to go work with his father. And Emily is running late for her class. She has signed up for this new class in New York. And so she wants to go to it. And Washington says, actually, I got to get to where Dad is. I'm going to have the coachman come back and get you afterwards. So again, she's kind of left waiting, and she's not allowed to drive herself. And she's in this frustrated place. And he asks her to be patient for once in her life, and then he leaves. And then we get this song.
Can I say one thing really
Yes.
quickly? I still really like this song. It's one of those things where this becomes one of what's called a trunk song, where you put it in a trunk and maybe use it later. But I just wanted to also mention that, like, just because these songs get cut doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad songs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's what is the song for the moment, right? Not what makes it good or bad, but what are you trying to achieve with it? And very much like Rebel Prayer too, this new one you're going to hear is still so new to us, right? So we've got some.
It's not even notated. I mean, like, I've never heard it.
Great, very good. So, be patient for once, please. I can be patient. It's not that hard. Like my mother always used to say, the key to being patient is finding a good distraction. I'll read a book. Better yet, I'll read a classic, a weighty, wordy tome, with many twists and turns of thought lounge in a book. Let the hours swiftly pass, it may be effortful to focus, still the battle must be fought, lest my mind begin to wander down that well-worn road again, to that one incessant question, that one infernal word. When will that imbecile get here? When will I go to my class? When will I do frankly anything other than sit with myself on my window? Hold your horses, Emily. Don't let them leave that starting gate. I know you long to run, but if you heed the gun, I guarantee it will be worth the wait. I pick up a book. Here we are, The Woman in White, a searing social commentary on the inability of women to exert any power over their own life. Who could get absorbed in this dribble anyhow? What I need is an intellectually stimulating pastime. I'll learn to knit. Fashion knitting after knitting, and when two hands are done, whip up a scarf to match the pair. I'll calmly sit. For chairs are made for one to sit in, and I will not check the clock, and I won't pull out my hair, for scene that does not do to linger on the moments breezing by. A lady must not point her finger,
or impose that loathsome word? Why? Why does he hire these minions? Why is this always my luck? Why am I wasting a fine summer evening accomplishing nothing, awaiting a coachman who's such an incompetent? No, 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 no. Hold your horses, Emily. Sometimes it's best to hesitate. You're champing at the bit, but breathe for just a whit, and soon you'll see it will be worth the wait. Yes, you're filled beyond the brim. Yes, you're hungry for a glow. Yes, you're stifling every whim. Yes, you'd kill to take control. Yes, an unfulfilled potential is a burden on the soul. But you'll sacrifice for him, for a wife must know her role. Hold your horses, Emily. The disappointment may be great, but though you're ready now, you can't forget you took a vow. So cool your heels, conceal your plea. These rules will bend eventually, and when they do, don't you agree? It will be worth the wait. Woo!
This interesting thing happens when you're trying to write a woman of a certain time and of a certain demeanor as a protagonist, which is that we want to see her change over the course of the show. We've known for a while that this idea of her driving, of her holding the reins to her carriage, is something that she will have given up, either given up or been made to give up at the top of the piece, and she will take up again at the end of part one when she takes over the bridge, right? We've known that. We want to get her there. And one of the reasons why we're exploring a new song in this moment is because we feel, in that previous version, that she's a little bit already too much champing at the bit and ready to get there. And if we're gonna have an entire hour and a half plus to need to take her to a new transformative place, we think that she needs to be in a mental place where there's a little bit more work that has to be done on her. And if you came yesterday and got to hear Katie sing as Marianne McMahon, who's our sort of other female lead in the show, she has a lot of fire in her. She's a lot of who Emily was when she was younger, and she's there to kind of remind her of that and get her to take that back up again. But it doesn't seem in this it feels in this previous version like she's like one straw on the camel's back away from being like, I'm done on that, right? So we kind of don't need this other character who we love so much, right? So we're trying to dial Emily back and put her in a place where she gave up driving as soon as she got married. It was never a question. It was a youthful fancy. She indulged in it, but she knew. She wants to be a wife of a man who's going to do great things. And if she's going to, then that requires a certain thing of her. And she knows that. So this is the Emily who's aware of that, who's not really questioning that, maybe a little bit, but not allowing herself to. And so in the scene before this, and actually again, same kind of setup. We see the two cities, everybody hates each other, hooray, it's today. And then we get the second scene at the Roeblings' house, again in their brownstone. But now actually, they have a character of Emily's mother, and who needles Emily a little bit about the things that she's given up for Washington. Her mother isn't a huge fan of Washington. She's not totally convinced that he's worthy of her daughter. And so she's questioning some of the ways in which Emily has changed herself for him. Right before this song, they are unpacking their home. They're getting settled. They've just moved to Brooklyn to begin the project. And Emily, in opening a box, finds her riding crop that she used to use when she drove. and has to consider for a moment why she doesn't anymore. And this is called The Greater Good.
There are habits we are sure will never break. Daily actions that are part of our routine. Little things we do and say without thinking, without weighing just how much they do or do not mean. There are versions of ourselves we come to know. Simple habits we can recognize for better or for worse. Some are brilliant, some bizarre. Still they show us who we are and how we fit inside this universe. And then in an instant, something strange right then. In that instant, we change for a greater good. A greater good. And things we thought would always stay far away, as they should, for something greater. There are things we are fed when we are young, empty platitudes we falsely hope are true. There's a future with no limit. If you have a light, don't dim it, for the whole wide world is just waiting for you. There are lessons we are taught but won't accept. We ignore them and convince ourselves the rules do not apply. Let the others all surrender. We will be a staunch defender of the ones who decide to dig in and defy. In an instant, a surprise. Right then, in that instant, we compromise for a greater good. A greater good. And vows we never thought we'd say we obey. As we should, for something greater. He builds things, beautiful things, things that are brave and bold. He builds things, impossible things, pushing the boundaries, breaking the molds, making miracles out of steel and stone, building bridges to shores we've never known. But he cannot take on this world alone. He needs a tower to lean on, to help him persevere. A tower to lean on, and that's why I am here. When the river is too wide, when the bed is too deep, when the odds are looking poor, when he's drowning in concerns, when his fears are justified, when his faith is hard to keep, when he hears his father roar and absorbs his barbs and burns, when his nerves are nearly fried, when he cannot fall asleep, when he comes home from the war. But not all of him returns. Still I'll be his tower when life's too much to take. Yes, I will stand firmly forever for his sake. For towers may bend, but although they bend, they do not break. For a greater good, a greater good, and dreams that might live on today, we wrap up tight and hide away. For sometimes what we want, we just have to delay and delay and delay. something greater.
We have just a couple minutes left, but I'm wondering if anybody has any questions for anyone up here. Any thoughts? Yeah.
You're all the way.
You got it. Okay.
Okay.
I was just wondering, how do you know when your story is a musical as opposed to a play?
Do you want to take that?
That is always the question. I mean, I think for me, sometimes you're not sure, and that can be kind of a problem. We've been in that position before. But I think it's a gut feeling that something sings, that it has those opportunities for a song, that there's a certain kind of emotional depth, or, you know, magical realism lends well to a musical. But for me, I don't think I have like a concrete answer. I think it's a gut feeling that I hear songs, I hear lyrics, I hear moments where a character can sing and should sing.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky, but you know the saying where the emotion becomes too great, so you can't speak anymore, you have to sing. And then if it becomes even greater, then you have to dance. It's a similar kind of thing when you're writing a story, when there's a real depth of emotion and literally the story wants to spring into song and it just feels right and organic. That's a good sign. And also with this story, you also want to, as a composer, you also want to think about the sound world, how you craft the sound world. Are there things that are attached to the story that actually make sense for it to be musicalized? So with this story, we have the punk sound, which you didn't hear today, because that comes from Pussy Riot. And then the emotional core of the story, which starts with the loss of the father, which is inspired by my own dad, who was a Soviet theater director. There is a lot of emotional depth in here that I personally can draw from as a composer. And yeah, it's just one of those things where you don't totally know until you start doing it and kind of seeing it if it lands or not. And we just hope this one does.
I think we're probably at for time, but feel free to find any of us. You have any further questions? Huh? Oh, e-poster. They have an e-poster downstairs as well, so please check that out so you can learn more about a rebel prayer. And I think what I will leave you with, too, is just my favorite. So there are 372 theater degree granting programs in the United States alone. We could talk about whether that's oversaturated, but for right now, what a great number. There are 220 musical theater programs in the US alone. So I think a lot about the impact that academia can make if they invest in new works and new artists today on the theater industry of tomorrow, and I hope that you will too. Thank you very much for being here.